Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Life Wrap-Up Race Weekend Debrief Edition. I'm Joe Samaniego. With me, we have Kobe Lambeth from Grid Tonight and from Outlet Media, Jackson Lambros. Very excited to welcome everyone on the air, especially everyone tuning in for the first time. If this is your first time tuning in, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and comment with your questions, comments. We'd love to read them on the air. A big thank you to our Patreon investors, Con, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew for investing in us and helping Ben get out here to Portland. It means a world to have folks get the opportunities to cover the races at the track. And if you want to do a one-time investment, YouTube Super Chat, buy me a coffee, plenty of options, and we catch it on the air. We'll thank you on the air if we, for some reason, don't thank you on the air, or you're watching us where we're not live. We will still thank you the next time we go on the air. And of course, Jackson also has been after the track thanks to our Patreon investors. Let's get started. I know, Jackson, you were out on track for IndyCar. They were in Detroit, along with IMSA. And Kobe, what a race weekend we had. Ben and I were here in Portland. You had a lot going on Saturday. IMSA. Then we have IndyCar in Detroit, and that IndyCar race, I would say, was a bit more on the brutal side. Caution after caution, after more caution and cautions. And I just thought, what's going on here? Brian Herta, he said he hated this. It turned into a lottery. IMSA race, 100 minutes, 21 laps under full course caution out of the 75 laps completed. Kobe, starting with you, is this track the problem, or are the drivers or IMSA IndyCar approach to the track the problem?
Well, to be honest with you, Joe, I really think that the design of this track is the reason why we're seeing all the chaos and carnage that we've been seeing at this Detroit track in the second year of its existence. It was just really crazy, especially the IndyCar race today. It seemed like every time we started to go racing, there was just caution after caution after caution after caution. And whoever designed this track, I think they knew exactly what they were doing, because it seemed like that this street circuit is strictly for, I guess, if you want to call it entertainment, but I'm sure the drivers didn't really have a good time out there. I saw Graham Rahal, Pato Award saying they missed Belle Isle. I saw Ryan Hunter-Reay even post a photo of Belle Isle, reminiscing to past memories at that track. And after seeing all the chaos we saw in this IndyCar race, it seems like a lot of people want to see Belle Isle return. I don't even know if that's even remotely a realistic possibility, but Belle Isle was trending on X/Twitter today, so I guess that should tell you something. It got a lot of people talking, and I think they could potentially, stay in the downtown Detroit area for a while. But I really believe, in order to fix all of the issues we saw with this very tight track, I think the track layout certainly needs some changes.
Yeah, I mean, nailed it on the head, Kobe. It's funny because I felt like just a couple of years ago, when we were still having Belle Isle, not aware of what was going to happen, it felt like people were saying, oh, let's go back to downtown. This racing is boring. And now it feels like the, tables have turned, and it feels like the script's totally flipped. But can I say it's a little bit of both? It feels like a little bit of both. Naturally, I mean, you've got one solid shot, turn 3, as your overtaking shot, and you have your restart zone going into that only place. That in and of itself seems like a curation of chaos. But that being said, it's also on the drivers too. If cautions breed cautions, it's up for them to not, make that a bigger issue than it already is. So I do think it's kind of funny that Brian Herta hated it and turned it into a lottery, when Colton Herta, you can say what you will about the race he drove, but he did a major part in spinning that wheel again. So I think it's a combination of both. Going back to the Belle Isle thing, though, it was a combination of Detroit wanted the race kind of in their backyard, and they wanted to move it into Detroit, and also from the city and the state, because Belle Isle, that's prime area, and they wanted to give that back to the city during what should be like essentially the best weather of the year. And obviously, Kobe, not exactly the weather they wanted for today, which also totally played into that. That's a whole nother factor.
The weather today played a big factor, and I think that lengthy caution had even the commentators asking what was going on. And they was trying to get the running order, but it really felt odd because it almost felt like we were waiting for the rain to go by. And if you had made a pit stop for the wet tires, you put yourself now in a bad spot because the caution was so long. Correct me if I'm wrong, McLaughlin going off, correct? That was the cause of that caution?
I believe so. And that was even more of the issue because we had all these guys going on wets and it ended up doing nothing for them because we didn't even get any green time with drivers on the wet tires because it was a mix of race control, not being able to get this race back to green, to issues with the pace car, to drivers just instantly putting us back to square one. So frustrating for sure.
Yeah, it was a bit frustrating. Now, of course, we had IndyCar, but we also had IMSA. IMSA is part of the Grid Endurance Performance Index, and for the first time since 2022, Wayne Taylor Racing number 10 with Andretti Autosport was on the top step of the podium. One key moment of the race was when Nick Tandy, the number 6 Porsche, getting a penalty. Tandy spun the number 35 GTD Ferrari 296 GT3 of Conquest Racing. They recovered, came home second place, and the 01 Cadillac was in third place. Jackson, do you have any thoughts on the GTP race? And do you agree with that penalty on Nick Tandy?
Can I say that Wayne Taylor Racing is like the Ferrari of IMSA? Because like if we do like the Seb Vettel line here, like it feels like everyone's kind of a Wayne Taylor fan, and even if you're not, you're always kind of supporting him. And I think this is just such a breath of fresh air for the 10 crew. Obviously, the 45 not quite there on pace yet for those Acuras, but again, that's teething problems for both Jordan and Louis. But super, super awesome to see that car back in victory lane. Obviously, they've had issues with this new Acura, and it's very much a flip of what we saw at Long Beach, right? Acura sponsored event, Cadillac wins, and now GM sponsored event, we see Acura winning, which is very, very interesting to see. Regarding the 296, for anyone who saw that replay with Tandy and the Conquest, that was done with no regard for human life on Tandy. I have no issues saying that. Dude just went way too late on the brakes. It's amazing that the 35 was able to get that running again. Was it an accident? Yes. Was it avoidable? 100% Kobe.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have any issue with the penalty that IMSA handed down on Tandy there. And it's been interesting watching Tandy here in Detroit and then, last round at Laguna Seca. It seems like Tandy's having a very tough time in the car right now from a mental standpoint, because I remember him talking about all the mistakes he's been making and all of that behind the wheel. But, looking at Nick Tandy's resume, he's a very good race car driver. So I don't really know why he's having a very tough time when it comes to the mental aspect of racing. But all in all, it still worked out at the end of the day. The Porsche still ended up getting a really good result despite the penalty. And looking at the overall GTP race, I thought it was a solid showing from the top class. Although there's big prototypes, it seemed like the drivers had to really muscle those things around these tight sections of this Detroit street course. It was certainly a driver's track, trying to make sure you stay off the wall and all of that. And it's also a good thing we only had a limited number of GTD Pro cars in the field, because if we had both GT classes, it could have gotten even hairier than it was. And for Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti to get this win, especially that number 10 Ricky Taylor, Felipe Albuquerque, got to give a big call to them, because the last couple of years they've been through quite a lot of bad luck on the racetrack, and we kept wondering, when is this 10 team gonna stop the bleeding? And it finally stopped in the Motor City.
We finally stopped the bleeding. Comment in the chat room for one of our YouTube members, and of course you could subscribe to our YouTube membership. You mentioned how about going to Michigan International Speedway? Kobe, we know there's been talks about IndyCar needs more ovals. What are your thoughts on the idea of a potential Michigan?
Oh yeah, I would love to see IndyCar go back to Michigan. And I really believe that IndyCar needs to, go to those super speedway type tracks. Can you imagine what the speeds would be in Michigan today?
Oh
I think
God,
it would be absolutely insane, like scary, insane, even scarier than going into turns 1 and 3 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And given how this super speedway era shines, I really think it would also shine in Michigan, because people want to see speed. People keep asking for more oval races, and we've lost the Fontanas in the world, we lost the Poconos. If we could get back to a track like a Michigan, I think that would be a huge momentum for IndyCar, and I am grateful that we have another two more ovals on the schedule this year. The Milwaukee Mile and then Nashville at the end of the year, which was a last minute surprise, but I really think we could certainly add a bigger oval like Michigan. But I really think, given everything that Penske Entertainment's invested in the Detroit Grand Prix, I find it hard to believe, that they would drop this, because, this is Bud Denker, who's one of the Penske Entertainment executives. This is basically his baby, and I'm sure he wants to see it out. I know that Penske Entertainment worked really hard to get this race back to the downtown city streets, although, it seemed like people would prefer Belle Isle, especially after today. But we know whenever we go to Belle Isle, you always have to deal with, those environmentalists who say, that IndyCar is hurting the environment and all of that. And when it was announced that IndyCar will return to the downtown city streets, everybody's happy. IndyCar gets to race on the streets of Detroit, right in front of the Chevrolet building, basically headquarters building. And then the environmentalists are happy because it keeps cars away from Belle Isle.
Yeah, Kobe, totally agree with you. Awesome that we're seeing more ovals this year, but still really, really want to see, obviously, big ovals, because only race where we're seeing the low downforce aero kits is Indy. But was really, really interesting listening to Bud Denker and also the CEO of the Detroit Grand Prix, Michael Montry, talking about what went into the event this year, how much they've come. Obviously, there was some free admission last weekend, and they were able to sell out pretty much almost all of the general admission and unreserved seats, which is awesome. But they were also talking about just how complicated and how intricate of an effort it was to move this from Belle Isle all the way back to the streets of downtown. And it seemed like the way they were approaching it, I would really think that we might go back to Michigan, but it would not be at the expense of the Detroit Grand Prix. Penske Entertainment said in the presser today that they were potentially open to sponsoring another event wherever that might be. So potentially bringing the Michigan 500 back. Obviously, we'd have to see what drivers and teams think about that if it's coming out of Penske. But it's not looking like even with the headquarters of Chevrolet moving from the building. I forget the name of it, Kobe. I'm so sorry. The name of the building that's
is it the Renaissance? No, it's not the
Renaissance Center.
Is that it? Yeah, is that
Even though they're scheduled to move it at some point this year, it sounds like there's no intentions to actually relocate that track for at least the next couple of years.
Yeah, and in regards to Penske Entertainment, looking to promote another race, I also wanted to add that it would have to be in a different market, Yeah, so if it's in a different market, dare I say, let's try Richmond again? I know it's not a big oval, but it would be nice to have another oval on schedule. You remember before the pandemic happened, that IndyCar was scheduled to race at Richmond, and then, it dropped off the schedule, and then, they never tried to get it back on.
Richmond would be great. I would love to see Homestead Miami too. That would be a great opportunity as well for IndyCar.
I'll throw one in here, Joe, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Does it feel like it's been enough time for us to go and try Charlotte again? That's a hard question. I know.
Yeah, I'm biased. I'm here in the area, so I would love to have an opportunity to go check out IndyCar racing in person if I have the opportunity. Where I'm living, the closest IndyCar race to me is Nashville.
I would say, considering Charlotte is very similar to the prior configuration of Texas Motor Speedway, I would say yes.
Right.
It will be an interesting market, but if for some reason they just, you could use the Roval, but I would say the oval will still work for racing. It's just a matter of, we all know, unfortunately, what happened back in the Indy Racing League days. Mm-hmm. I think that's a concern, but I feel now with the technology and everything, that'd be great if they would entertain the idea of IndyCar in that 1.5 mile oval with this low downforce package. So
if you remember, Newgarden did do exhibition laps at the Roval,
I was
which I
there
think
that
might be
day.
an option. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was my first time seeing an IndyCar run in person. I was like, "Holy crap, this is fast!" I was down in the infield to get a feel for the downforce on that thing. It was insane seeing how deep he got on the brakes, and it wasn't just his carefree demo run. Like he was pushing the car to the absolute limit, and it was insane to see an IndyCar run in person for the very first time. But yeah, if they wanted to use the Roval layout, you very well could. But on the oval right now, the asphalt of Charlotte Motor Speedway is in a sweet spot right now, where it produces great racing. I think the Indy cars will put on a really great show, especially if Firestone gets the correct tire compound, where the tires are falling off.
Yeah, the racing in Charlotte the last few years in the oval has been phenomenal. IndyCar, low downforce, good tire wear. That could be a great show. Definitely more ovals will be needed. Let's switch back to IMSA before we get, or do somebody want to say something before we go into? No.
I got to sign a birdwalk here. Let's keep going.
So before we switch more to IndyCar, GTD Pro, a very popular win for the number 77 Rexy, the AO Racing Porsche, Seb Prio and Lauren Heinrich. They got to win in their class, the Rexy car. As I mentioned, everybody loves that paint scheme of the dinosaur. Vasher Sullivan racing the number 18, and the Heart of Racing number 23, Aston Martin Vantage. Those are your second and third place finishers. You had mentioned that, we didn't have that big of a GTD field, just the pros. Kobe, I'll ask you this. AO Racing, can they make it 3 wins in a row? Because they won now 2 in a row. They got to go to Watkins Glen now, where we know Vasher Sullivan is pretty good at the Glen.
Yeah, for sure. It's been really amazing, finally seeing Rexy win the last time out, and then now they've won again and potentially make it 3 in a row at the Salem 6 hours of the Glen. I think this team can absolutely make some noise in the championship. I believe that Heinrich and Prio are leading the GTD Pro Championship right now over Ben Barnico and Jack Hawksworth. And looking at where the whole GTD Pro field is right now, I'm honestly surprised the way things are right now. I definitely didn't have the Rexy Porsche at the top of the GTD Pro standings. I thought it would be the Corvettes and then Madison Snow and Brian Sellers and the Paul Miller Racing BMW. So it's certainly been interesting. I thought the Chevrolets would be stronger this year, with the Pratt Miller group, Antonio Garcia, Alexander Sim, Nikki Casper, Tommy Milner. I expect a lot more from them, but it seems like that they're really having a hard time with that brand new Corvette GT3 car. And then, the Fords, it seemed like they're kind of out to lunch, still developing the car, trying to figure everything out. And then here you come with reliable the Porsche 911 GT3R. I think it just shows, this Porsche, it's been through so many miles on both sides of the Atlantic, and I think its reliability and how dependable this car is really what's helping Lauren Heinrich and Seb Prio, run so well right now in this class. While it seems like everybody else, is still trying to build chemistry and try to build some more consistency, because right now the Rexy Porsche has three podiums and 1 outlier finish, and then Ben Barnico, Jack Hawksworth, they have two podiums. They were fourth at Laguna Seca, and they didn't really have a good Rolex 24 at Daytona. And it really seems like, when I'm looking at all the results, that a lot of teams just need to build that consistency. And it really seems like the AO Racing Rexy Porsche certainly has everything figured out at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. Super happy for PJ Hiet and Gunnar Jeanette to finally get back-to-back wins. Was super cool to see this car run at Long Beach last year, even though it went into the wall and during qualifying and actually couldn't race. But when I was there at Laguna Seca, 2 weeks later, it had a cast on and the whole Porsche North America team signed it, which I thought was the coolest thing ever. So I don't know if we're going to see 2 gold teeth on that car now or what they're going to do for Watkins Glen, but I'm excited to see it, whatever it is. So I think we're at a really interesting point right now, because the Porsche 911 this generation is finally, I think, in a spot where BOP is favoring it. I think on the same end of that, you definitely have a Lexus that is defining age with how old that car is. It's like, what, 7 years old now? And has just totally dominated, especially on the road and street courses, which is why we saw that car finish in second with a bumper off on that Lexus RCF. So I think this is a battle. I'm convinced this is going to be a battle that's going to continue going into Watkins Glen. Whether it's going to be one of the other Porsches, I think the Lexi are always in running with Vassar Sullivan, but we'll see if AO can keep it up. I really don't think those guys have had a solid docket of results when it comes to the endurance rounds, so we will see what they can do.
The endurance rounds is going to be something else, and that's the next one. Saline, 6 hours at the Glen, June 20th and 23rd. Let's switch back to IndyCar because they're going to be racing again next weekend, Road America, which is very much the opposite of what we had at Detroit. Plenty of space and plenty of passing opportunities for Alex Palou, a chance at redemption. Detroit, finally, the streak we've talked about ended. His top 10 streak got snapped at 23 races. Since the end of 2022, he had been finishing in the top 10. It looked like he was able to salvage it at one point, but then when Joseph Newgarden spun, he had nowhere to go. That dropped Alex Palou way down the railing order. And then, of course, in the grid ranking with week 9 now out, Alex Palou went from second all the way down to 9th in the grid ranking, losing a lot of spots. Scott Dixon moved up with his win to 7th. So overall, I have to ask you both, when it comes to Alex Palou and the streak being broken of top 10 finish after top 10, a lot of top 5s, but always top 10. How frustrating is it, Jackson, to have such a streak broke?
I'll tell you what, for those of you curious, it was the second race of Iowa in 22. That was the last time we saw Palou outside of the top 10. I think that's the mantra of how Chip Ganassi racing as a whole carries themselves, where even if it's not a win or a podium, it's consistently front running, right? And if it's not doing it on raw pace, it's finding the strategy or finding any way to kind of stay in contention, right? So I think it's obviously incredibly disappointing for Alex, but if there's any kind of race weekend, I really don't think Alex is going to put such a massive chip on his shoulder, because he's still definitely in the title fight here with his teammate Scott Dixon. And even when Palou is struggling, Chip's got to be happy, because as we're going to talk about, him and Armstrong did a fantastic job getting their way to the front here, Kobe.
Yeah, and Jackson, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that the last time Palou finished outside of the top 10 was towards the end of the 2022 season at Portland International Raceway. I could be wrong though.
We are checking.
But anyways, to answer the question, in the meantime, that definitely has to be frustrating for Palou. But at the end of the day, everyone's luck is going to run out at some point. Then today was the day that Alex Palou's luck finally ran out. As chaotic and crazy as this race was, if Palou had survived to get a top 10 out of this, I would have been more surprised by that. But it was quite a wild card race at Detroit. It seemed like in the 2 years we've had this race on the downtown city streets, that has become a true wild card. And I think Palou and the number 10 team is just gonna think of today as just a throwaway race, and they're gonna get him next time out.
It was indeed a 12th at Portland. I thought it was Iowa. He finished 13th in Iowa though. But yes, P12 was the last time he was outside of the top 10. That's
an amazing streak still. P12, we know he's won there twice, but a P12 in between, I could see why everyone was thinking it was a little bit long. But at the end of the day, Palou, even though I bet if he was being interviewed, he would say, well, big picture is racing the championship still. To have such a streak going of top 10 finish after top 10 finish, that Mr. Consistency coming to an end, still has to be something that just you're a little bit upset about. But bigger pictures now, it's a championship. We know that's the case. No driver this year has a 100% top 10 finish rate. Currently, the longest top 10 streak right now goes to Alexander Rossi and Scott Dixon at 3 apiece. So they still got a long ways to go, 20 more to get to what Alex Palou has said. Dixon, well, he got the win today. So he is now the points leader, and he's 9 wins away from tying AJ Floyd for wins. Fuel mileage, Marcus Ericsson was held up by Marcus Armstrong. He got up around him, but just cannot get the win. So overall, Kobe, thoughts on Scott Dixon's win?
Once again, Scott Dixon with another very impressive win. It seems like whenever the team tells him he has to hit this ridiculous field number, we're always like, oh, he's not going to be able to do that. And look again, Scott Dixon hit that field number, and he was able, and obviously, all the cautions helped that out, but still not, it doesn't take away from Scott Dixon's impressive drive today. It really seems like whenever his back is against the wall and there's so many different variables thrown his way, Dixon, that number 9 Chip Ganassi racing team, always find a way to come out on top, and he did that today. And based on how Scott Dixon has been performing to start the 2024 season, I believe a 7th championship is definitely possible for the Iceman, and it would not surprise me at the end of the year if he's holding up the Astor Cup at the end of the day. It's just been a very impressive run that he's had, a very impressive start to this season, and I think it's only going to get better from here. And in regards to him, tying AJ Floyd, if Dixon continues to race for the next several years and at this same level of performance, I think he could potentially get 9 more wins and tie AJ Floyd, or even passing. It just depends on how much longer Scott Dixon wants to continue driving, and if he can maintain competing at a very high level. It was another impressive win. Looking forward to seeing what he can do later on this season. I have a feeling that this won't be his last checker flag of 2024.
No, 100%. And I might have joked about this last year, but I'll bring it back. We need to check to see if there's any cult or deep like deep government connections that Mike Hull and Scott Dixon have, for Scott Dixon to fight this aging and for Mike Hull to somehow find a way to predict the future, right? Because it's become their bread and butter, and they've found a way to win, they've won in that way. But I think even Scott Dixon knew that luck was a little bit of a factor today, and he admitted that Long Beach was a separate challenge, right? Because that was more of an endurance to the finish, right? Less of having cautions go their way. I think Kyle Kirkwood did a fantastic job, and things were just kind of had cautions in the rain tires played out differently. Kyle definitely would have been in more of a contention there. But going over to Marcus Armstrong, oh my gosh. I don't know if you guys saw, but obviously didn't make it back to pit lanes, actually crossed the line out of fuel. So super good job for him to hang on to that. I'm amazed that this was actually his first podium. I saw that stat line. I'm like, he hasn't been on the podium yet? What? So super, super happy for both of those guys. We had a Kiwi win at Portland. We had a Kiwi win today. Double Kiwi podium today. So good day for New Zealanders. Good weekend for New Zealanders.
Yeah. It is. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to say a lot of racing talent from New Zealand across the world of motorsports.
100%.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add, how about the two Marcuses that, after the month of May, especially that Marcus Ericsson had crashing his primary car for the Indy 500, having to go to a backup, been in the last row shootout, crashing out on lap 1 of the Indy 500, and then to finally, get a good run with the Zandretti Global team after leaving Chip Ganassi Racing. This was the type of day that Ericsson at number 28 team needed to try to build some momentum and really turn their season around in what's been a very difficult 2024 campaign so far. And Marcus Armstrong, I think he's still figuring out the INDYCAR Series, and I think he's very serious about his work, obviously, and it seems like all the hard work he's been putting in is paying off.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when we look at the seat he was filling in Romain Grosjean, I think there was a little bit of early anxieties of, are we going to see a guy that maybe is struggling to kind of fill these shoes at Andretti, right? Teething issues were early. Best finish up until that point was 5th at Long Beach. But it's clear that he's been putting in the work with this team and really, really trying to grow. And it's awesome to finally see him on the podium with this team. And, it seemed like he was kind of really, really struggling. I don't know what it was going to take, but it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this relationship with Andretti kind of goes throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it turns out with Andretti and him. A win will make it a lot better. A podium, as he said after the race, we're back. That has to be feeling really good for him. And of course, this happened in Detroit, where coming in the chat room, the Detroit track is no good, especially for IMSA. Way too prototype racing. Now, Jackson, I know in our private chat you mentioned, in your opinion, you think the track could be fixed with a couple corners redesigned. Overall, do you think it's just not salvageable for IMSA?
So originally they actually did want to have the backstretch before the hairpin actually go even further. I'm not sure to what street specifically, but they're restricted due to the corners of where they can have runoff. So I think any expansion I was potentially talking about was probably going to be thrown out the window. That being said, I still think IMSA can have a great show. I just don't know if GTPs should be there. I would love to see GTD Pro.
That could be a good show. Just a GTD Pro, GTD, 2 classes race in 100
I don't know
minutes.
if they're doing that this year other than VIR. I know Lime Rock used to be an all GT round, so.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how that all shapes up. Now, Detroit, of course, Team Penske, they put in a lot of effort to organize this event. They did not have exactly a good day at all. Scott McLaughlin, off track, cost a yellow. Joseph Newgarden, scary incident on pit road involving him. Lundgaard, thankfully, the pit crew members were okay. Will Power issues, but he managed to get into the top 10 somehow. More survival, especially as the other drivers who were having bad luck, which were causing caution after caution. And Chevrolet, they were the title sponsor of this event, coming off the success of the Indy 500, where they looked great. And we have 3 Hondas on the podium. Jackson, the disappointment for the Penske trio, but Will Power, top 10. How disappointing do you think this was overall for the Penske group?
I think incredibly disappointing, but you could put that down to Indy 500 hangover for that whole Penske organization, which seemingly dominated that whole month of May, right? But I think the favorite thing about my takeaways was Will Power on social media was like, I don't even know how I got myself into the top 10 after today. But yeah, I think what really stands out to me was this all kind of seemed like driver error. Newgarden bent the suspension. It was McLaughlin that lost it under braking with the track drying up. So it was really like, it seemed like some really rare mistakes from Team Penske. And obviously the Lundgaard thing for Newgarden didn't help in the pit lane either. But to see both of those guys running that far down the field, Kobe, it felt incredibly weird in what should be, Penske's technically second home race.
Yeah, and it definitely wasn't a Penske perfect day at all. It just across the board with the team, they ran into a lot of troubles. Just Newgarden with that problem in the pits, and then making a mistake, breaking the toe link in the rear. It was just not a good day at all for the now 2-time Indy 500 champion. And with this 26th place finish, that's another finish at the back. You remember when it got disqualified from the Firestone Grand Prix at St. Pete? Now it has 2 bad finishes, and that's really gonna hurt him and the championship. But good thing we have Iowa coming up later in the summer. We know how good he is there, so he could easily pull off a couple of wins there from the Iowa weekend. And Scott McLaughlin losing it under break, and it looked like he was going to have a good day until that incident happened. And I'm glad you brought up that about Will Power, Jackson, because I don't even know how he finished up there either, because I'm looking at the penalty report right now, and Will Power appears on the report a total of 4 times. He got one on lap 3 for emergency service on a closed pit. He had to restart at the back of the field, and then he appeared for a second time, failure to pack up under caution. He had to give up 3 positions. The third time, avoidable contact. He had to restart at the back of the field again, and then he got penalized a 4th and final time for a full service and a closed pit, and he had to do a drive-through penalty. So I'm with Will. I have no idea how he ended up getting a solid result out of that, because someone who's been penalized that many times, you expect him to finish towards the back, but it was just a real chaotic day with the running order shuffling so many times.
Yeah, and I think that's also what kind of made this race so frustrating, where Long Beach, I feel like you had a clear picture of what strategies were kind of going on and who was going what direction. It felt like the entire time from that first yellow, you had no idea who was on any kind of strategy and how anyone got anywhere. Like I struggled to remember the time that Dixon and Armstrong got to the front of the field, but no, 100% nailed it to a T there, Kobe.
What a race for all sorts of chaos going on with the cautions. And Ready Global, they were impacted too, because Kyle Kirkwood looked like the best of the team until Marcus Ericsson's impressive run towards the end. Colton Herta on the pole. I thought this was going to be, okay, this is a hard track to pass. Just stay out front of the trouble. You could get the win. But then Colton Herta went off the track. Kobe, does this look like the start of Colton Herta of old, where he's pushing it and then making mistakes?
I really hate to say it, Joe, but based on what we saw today from Colton Herta, it really seems like that this is a little bit of the Colton Herta of old. So far starting this season, it really seemed like that Herta was, finally maturing as a driver. And I still think he has, in certain aspects, but we saw it, last week in the Indianapolis 500 when ended up spinning out on his own, and then the nose of the car, it was barely damaged. All he had to do is, get a quick nose change, and he probably, would have been back up there, could have still salvaged some type of finish out of the day. But then he got out of the car, and people kept wondering, like, why is Colton Herta getting out of the car? And then once we saw how the car wasn't damaged and saw the team just change off the nose cone and put him back in, and then I was thinking to myself, wow, that is a colossal mental error by Colton Herta. If the car could have kept running, could have driven it back to the pits, did a nose change, and then, could have gotten back out there instead of losing so many laps to the point where you're totally out of contention. It really seems like that was a mistake in the Indianapolis 500. And then we saw Colton Herta very frustrated, with the strategy that he was on today. And it seemed like, that was like a move out of frustration. Like, I just want to go. I just want to go. And he ended up, smashing the car right there and ruining his day. And I think until Colton Herta, gets that out of his system, that's really going to be the only thing that's going to hold him back. And, and Herta also involved in some drama before the race as well. Him and teammate Kyle Kirkwood with Santino Ferrucci. So there's been a lot going on in the Andretti camp.
Yeah, this definitely does not help the renaissance of Colton Herta. You understand where he's coming from to do a late move like that in that area. But again, it was still a drying track. Slicks had no grip in that area and just went straight on, right? And like I was mentioning earlier, you can't be a guy that's upset with the cautions when you're a guy that's trying to make moves like that. So definitely issues. Still showed total maturity about the incident. But you can't talk smack to Santino and then finish a lap down like that. You can't.
Yeah, it's something else. That incident got a lot of attention. I know I was in Portland and we were hearing about it. I was like, oh boy, this is getting spicy over in the IndyCar side. Something else. A lot of chaos going on at this Detroit race, and we'll see what happens. Next one, though, Road America. That's the longest track in the season. Should have many more green flag laps. Unless we have a crazy weather situation like I can recall one year in kart where it was just downpoint wet rain and Mark Blundell won. But there was a lot of caution flags, so it'll be really interesting to see how it goes. Kobe, what's on your thoughts?
I said I wanted to point out, some comments that Colton Herta made, and looking at the results, I think it's kind of funny how things turned out, because after the incident between Kirkwood Herta and Santino Ferrucci, Colton made some spicy comments about Ferrucci probably going to finish P20 in what's essentially a Penske car for how many consecutive weeks. And looking at the results, Santino Ferrucci finished ninth today in the top 10, and guess where Colton Herta finished? P19, one position away from 20th. So I thought that was kind of funny that how that turned out after the comments that he made after the incident in practice.
Not the guy that finished P20, not the Penske that finished P20. Very close though. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Penske car did finish P20. Scotty Mack.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scott McLaughlin just a lousy weekend, and Colton Herta, both him and Scott McLaughlin dropped down the grid ranking, where poor performances overall. Just one of those racing deals where at the end of the day, bad luck, that'll hurt you. Jackson, let's switch over to we talked a lot about what happened in Detroit. Let's talk about what happened in Gateway today and a surprise winner.
Yes, Illinois 300 back in Gateway, baby. Ford and Toyota kicking butt most of the day. Chevys were not quite there. Ryan Blaney looked to be cruising to victory. Took the white flag, slowed down out of nowhere. Ended up running out of gas. Gave the win to Austin Cindric. Second career win since Daytona. He is now the 9th different winner in this Cup Series. Huge shakeup to the playoff standings. Joe, do we think this is the biggest one of the year?
It is the biggest one of the year, I say. I know a lot of people will say Suarez because Suarez was winless last year, but Suarez did get into playoffs at one point 2 years ago. He has the equipment. I think he has the potential to do that. Austin Cindric, we know he has the equipment, but it just seemed time after time people were starting to doubt his ability to race the car, get up towards the winning contention, because we've seen his teammates do it, but he hasn't done that. Really, it was just a Daytona 500, so a lot of folks thought he'll be competitive in the super speedways, Atlanta. This one, he was good and fast all day. Started up towards the front, ran a good, smart race. Honestly, he did look a bit faster than Blaney, but I don't think he would have caught Blaney unless we had still like 20 laps to go. But you just sometimes got to put yourself in the right place, and that's what he did today. Put himself in second place, and coming off that corner, I thought, Blaney let Suarez by. That's really odd. This is towards the end of the race. Why are you doing that? And then he just come to a crawl as he's crossing, taking the white flag, and Austin Cindric gets around. Huge morale boost, I think, for him. The confidence boost, the team, and now weird to say that Cindric brings Penske their first win in the NASCAR Cup Series, but hey, we still got quite a ways to go. I'm pretty confident Logano, who won the All-Star race, non-points, to get it done. And Blaney, so close at Atlanta, but lost that to Suarez. It'll be really interesting to see what Cindric can do with this win going forward.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of guys that we were expecting to maybe be closer to playoff contention, or at least, kind of locked in at this point, really not there. Follow up on that, we got 11 races remaining, 7 playoff spots not secured by a win. Doesn't appear that we'll have any more winners than playoff spots again this year. So, Joe, what drivers do we feel like needs the step up in performance to really kind of lock in through winning a race? Pace is not enough.
I would say Michael McDowell is the first one. He got the pole. It looks like he has the pace. He just got to put together the great race to put himself in victory lane. Today's race just seemed to fall apart, and I feel that's sort of the weakness of Front Row Motorsport. Michael McDowell, great on the road course. He won at Indianapolis road course last year. Oval races, that seems to be a much harder. He got Sonoma, but I think Sonoma is not exactly his greatest point. He's one of those drivers. Bubba Wallace, he needs to step it up and get a win.
100%.
I mean, he was up towards the front. Strategy didn't exactly work out. Those are two drivers I see. And then really, when it comes to Stewart-Haas Racing, they're just in a must-win situation. Josh Berry was looking good until he hit the wall. Noah Gregson's hit or miss. He needs to have one of those weekends where he is a good fast car, finish up ahead and get that win because it's going to fill up quickly. I'm anticipating at this pace, I'm going to say 11 to 12 different winners by the time we start the playoffs. So you're at the 12, that means 4 will get in by points. It could get really tight, especially there are drivers that are still potential playoff contenders that have yet to win. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out.
100%. And I think Bubba is really my standout driver there. When you especially look at how those opening rounds going after Atlanta and Bristol seem to be really, really strong for him. Only got to have, I think, 3 or 4 top 10s in a row there, but just kind of fell off getting into the double digits this year. And that 23-11 crew as a whole really needs to get it together. We talked about his team's poor performance on pit lane. But let's talk about his boss here, Denny Hamlin. Another top 5 finish, moved up to 11th in grid ranking, just behind Formula E, whose next race is in Poland. To put that into perspective, William Byron in 14th, Brad Keselowski's in 16th. Okay. Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell outside the top 20. Kyle and Kyle show. Kyle Busch and Larson collide entering turn 2. Kyle Larson kept going. Busch was done for the day with a hard impact on the wall. Busch sarcastically said it was his fault. That's Kyle Busch for you. Joe, where are we putting the blame here?
I'm not 100% sure. I felt those two should have not been beating and banging entering the corner. You knew that was just going to end badly. Considering Darlington last year where everyone got mad at Ross Chastain for wrecking Kyle Larson on the restart, here we are, Kyle Larson, without a doubt, I think better equipment than Richard Childress Racing. He's trying to get around Kyle Busch. Why are they doing this when there's still plenty of racing to go? We knew there could be more cautions. In my opinion, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson could have both given each other a little bit more space. Because at the end of the day, when you enter that close together, it's very likely the car on the inside is going to lose the back end, spin around. And if you're on the outside, you're going to get collected too. And that's what happened. I feel both drivers could take a little bit of responsibility for that accident. Really was just unnecessary. And for Chevrolet in a race where the Fords and the Toyotas were up towards the front, I mean, Christopher Bell swept the stages. We saw at one point almost all Fords in the top 10. 2 of your faster Chevrolets are up there and they wreck each other. That was just not a good look. I will say this, though, speaking about improvement, though, when it comes to Chevrolet, Austin Dillon, a top 10 finish, I think that even more verifies my thought that Kyle Busch should have just, give him more space, let Kyle Larson go by. He could still got a top 10 finish, and a double top 10 finish for RCR would have been great. Instead, just Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch still winless. He's one of those drivers that needs to get a win because sometimes it just seems like he's hit or miss. It'll just be interesting to see because this was his first DNF of the season.
No, 100%. And I joke about Kyle Busch, right? But it really did feel like a 50-50 incident, right? Because no one should be racing that aggressive if you're Kyle Larson. You're using the whole top half of the racetrack, essentially, when you're still in... Was that stage 1 or 2? That was still stage 1, right?
I believe.
But Kyle Busch was still... I mean, it's Kyle Busch, right? He's not going to back out of the outside line like that. But it was genuinely it looked like a 50-50 incident. So really disappointing for both of those guys, obviously, especially Kyle Busch. And it felt like, Joe, a year ago, we were talking about this maybe being the fall off of Kyle Busch, who maybe already had a win at this point, but just was not having consistency after that.
Yeah, I mean, he had a couple of wins. We were all talking about how, hey, he's back. But then it just seemed the second half of the season just fell flat. And that's where I feel there still are right now. So it's interesting development. But yeah, it was stage 2, I think. Yes, stage 2, because I remember stage 1 was fairly calm. Besides that first incident, Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson had that issue.
No, 100%. Let's talk about Gateway, by the way. 3 years, 3 different winners, 2 past champions. Also, obviously, we'll be hosting IndyCar in a couple months' time. yesterday, while you were at Portland for the third consecutive year of the Xfinity Series being there, that's so cool, by the way, was announced that Gateway will be back. We know there's been a lot of speculation about the 25 season rumors, right? Will the Clash be in LA? I'd like it to. Does Richmond lose a date? Where does Bowman Gray shake out in its fight for a spot? Is Mexico still in the hunt for that? And what we know so far, All-Star race moving to North Wilkes, or going to be at North Wilkesboro. Coke 600 will be the first Amazon Prime covered race. Atlanta will be TNT's return for the NASCAR in-season tournament. Gateway will be back, and we're assuming it's going to be on the same weekend. Nothing confirmed yet. So I'm really curious to know, coming from Portland, right? Thoughts on Gateway being back and what other tracks might be on a short list for consideration. Cup Series going to Portland?
Oh, that is something where, I mean, we all know I'm in Portland, so that would be fun. It's just going to be, I think, a matter of a lot of different stakeholders agreeing on such a move, because you have Road America. I think Road America should be considered for a date again. They had the Cup Series 100%. For a couple years. I thought it was great racing. If they didn't have the stage breaks, I think it would have been great strategy-wise to see what happened. But we still had the stage breaks, and I think those cautions for the stage breaks were just way too long for that track. We know there's Bowman Gray in the picture. Where is that going to fall? Mexico City, I've heard the rumors of the Clash, a points race. It's just really interesting to see what happens. But one of the things I am sort of looking at is we know how the broadcast partners are sort of shaping up. TNT, they got the Atlanta race. We know Amazon, they got the Coca-Cola 600. I would assume NBC is going to start their coverage with one of the bigger races, maybe Indianapolis. What races does Fox go? And that's where I think it goes to. What races would the broadcast partners like to see, and that NASCAR can make possible? Because still NASCAR is going to want a track that has a good promoter, bringing 100%. A lot of benefits. You could say Portland, the Northwest, that'll be great for the Cup Series. I'm curious, though, if it was on Amazon, which they have their headquarters in Seattle, could that be some influence? But so many unknowns. We really, whatever tracks they add, I think they're going to be excited about. We'll be excited about, of course, covering it as well, too, because it's just always interesting. I see in the chat room, Adam says, bring back The Rock, of course, Rockingham, North Carolina. That's a potential. I mean, we know they're working on that track. It's hosted Truck Series.
Right.
It's in the heart of NASCAR country. I just always think it's just, before it was always the second race of the year. So it was very cold February in North Carolina.
Right.
Or the last race of the year, which, again, it was November, not exactly the greatest weather, but great racing overall. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'd love to see Rockingham come back, but I don't know if it would be able to kind of get in one of those prime summer calendar spots.
Yeah, Rockingham could be a good one. I just think it's going to be really more of whatever NASCAR, the broadcasting partners, track promoters, what deals they all could work out best for everybody. We know there's rumors about Sonoma maybe being relocated to another date, but that's just rumor and speculation. It'll just be interesting to see how that all goes. Ben, who's on the way to Sonoma, thanking you, Jackson, for filling in for him tonight. And tech complete, so the NASCAR race results are official too.
Yeah, super happy to be here. Ben, you and Joe did a fantastic job this weekend. I haven't said it yet, but fantastic job this whole weekend. And I'm really happy that we're seeing results, right? Like, press are almost at what, 10K views now?
Over, yeah.
Over, yeah, there we go. But yeah, text final. Sweet. Team Penske didn't get caught cheating again. Different team within the organization, but all of this going to be a really big source of news for 2025. And once that breaks, we'll all report it right here on Grid Network. Kobe already with some big news today. John Force indicating his exit from a marquee career in the NHRA. And last week, Grid Tonight had a ton of news, and it's seeming like it might be another handful of insane headlines this week, Kobe.
Well, hopefully, if it is a busy news week, it'll be spread out across Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Not all drop within the last few hours on Wednesday like it was last week. It was just a very crazy news week, especially at the 5:00 hour, 1 hour before the show. I had to put something together to talk about Tom Blomqvist losing his seat for the next 2 IndyCar races at Detroit and Road America. If it is, we'll be ready. We'll report on all the latest news in motorsports on Grid Tonight. Every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And now we're going to talk a little bit about MotoGP and also World Rally Championship. MotoGP saw Pecco Bagnaia do the weekend sweep with the sprint and Grand Prix race wins. Pecco is now 18 points away from Jorge Martin, who crashed in the sprint but finished third in the Grand Prix today. We have a championship. We have a battle for the championship, Joe. Who do you like after Mugello?
Oh, man. After Mugello, I feel like this is the kind of race where the momentum could switch in Pecco Bagnaia's favor. The one thing that did surprise me about Jorge Martin, though, was he ran a smart race in the Grand Prix to not allow Pecco Bagnaia to score a win and have him, Martin, not score any points. Great effort, because I felt that could have easily become a mistake where Martin just is pushing it, trying to get the win, to grow the lead, and then mess it up. At the end, look at the grid ranking. Bagnaia, Martin, they swap spots. They are still very much even, well ahead of the other riders in MotoGP. So I think still Martin has the upper hand. He doesn't have the disadvantage of, I'm the defending champion, the pressure's on me. I think Pecco Bagnaia does a good job of when he's on it 100%, he could go out there and get the win. It's just the mistakes that hurt him. Martin, overall, he is riding a lot smarter this year. I feel he still has the upper hand, especially the sprint races. It wasn't up until Saturday in the sprint. That was the first time he did not get a podium finish on the sprint. First time. And that was a mistake where he just lost the bike control, slid out. If he could come back, keep doing what he's doing, I think he has the upper hand. But Pecco Bagnaia, he'll be there to capitalize. If Jorge makes a mistake, the big thing for Bagnaia, he cannot make too many mistakes, or else Martin, I think, will run away with it.
Yeah, it was a surprise to see Jorge Martin make that mistake in the sprint. And on Grid Tonight, whenever we're doing the pickle winners on Wednesday nights, we like to call him the king of the sprints because it seems like he's always the favorite to win those races. So ended up not getting the pickle winner point there, but I'm sure he's going to bounce back and recover. Would not surprise me to see him win the next sprint race when MotoGP rides again. And those two riders are currently third and fourth in the grid ranking. The leader, Sebastian Ogier, is still after a second place finish, is tied for third in the WRC grid ranking, 41 points ahead of fifth place and 58 ahead of sixth place. Joe, could Sebastian Ogier place or win the grid ranking while only running a part-time schedule?
It almost seems like at first, when he took the lead, I thought, no, he's going to fall down to below fifth because the top 5 racers in each grid rating advanced to the grid ranking. But he's well ahead still, and he's leading, and the races he's in, he podiums or wins. He's the only driver to have more than one win in World Rally Championship. The other full-time drivers, Thierry Neuville, Autonic, they have a win, and that's it. Ogier, he's won the Grid Ranking World Championship before. It would be something special if he did that part-time, just saying, I was that good where when I came in and raced, I podium all the time. But it does have me thinking, okay, the rules of the grid ranking is, you are scored when you are attempting a race weekend. So in the past, I remember when Scott McLaughlin missed the Gold Coast race because he had that big crash in practice. He was intended to be in the race. He didn't make the race. He did not start that day. but he's still counted as a start, which lowered his score in the grid ranking. Sebastian Ogier, in his case, the races he's not in, we know well in advance he's not in. So that's why his score doesn't drop compared to Scott McLaughlin example, other drivers that have gotten hurt or were trying to get in, but for some reason did not make it in and their score dropped. This is just a very unique situation. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens as the year progresses. If he continues this domination of World Rally Championship, getting podiums and staying in the top 5. The big thing I feel is just the lack of competition he has from the full-time drivers, where he's going out there and winning. Even the past champion, Kali Rovanpera, not having this kind of success, and Ogier is just on another planet. If he was running full-time, this might be a runaway championship.
I guess you could say that Ogier is the OG based on all of his amazing runs that we've seen in his part-time World Rally Championship schedule, and it would be insane if he ends up winning the grid ranking by being a part-time driver. And it just goes to show you how impressive of a driver that he is. Can you imagine if he was running full-time? He'd be running away with the competition. He could probably win a handful more World Rally Championships, but he's at an older age now. He wants to spend more time with family and do other things. So he's just basically cherry picking the schedule and seeing which rallies, that he wants to run, which ones he liked the most and which ones he feel like he can really go out there and get the win. And I've just been very impressed with what we've seen from him. And it would not surprise me if for some crazy reason we see Sebastian Ogier win the grid ranking running part-time, or at least get a very high place and finish in the ranking at the end of the 2024 racing season. And as I said, Ogier is tied for third place in the WRC grid rating, with the winner of Rally Italia Sardinia, Ottonic. Ottanic's win came as a surprise to many, and finally a second full-time driver won this year. Ogier is still the only driver to win more than one race. We're approaching the second half of the season with Rally Poland up next on June 27th through 30th. Everyone is still mathematically eligible for the championship with 180 points remaining. Thierry Neuville has an 18-point lead on Ottonic as we approach Poland. Joe, do you believe Tonic can go for the win and the points lead at Poland?
I do. I felt Tonic, especially on the tarmac, is really good. He just needs to get that win, get the pressure off since he is now with Hyundai. And he's done that already. He got the win. Everybody was kind of surprised. Poland, I think he has a great opportunity to go out there, get 2 in a row, and really put the pressure on Thierry Neuville. This new point system is very interesting, though, because it's going to be just a matter of how he does on Sunday, Saturday, maximizing the points with this new point system. He could easily do it, and it will be really interesting if he does make this something where for the first time we're not talking about a Toyota driver going for the championship, because Elfyn Evans, he's not delivering, in my opinion, when it comes to this year. A lot of folks thought, okay, it was Ogier, Rovanpera, now it'll be Evans. No, it's Neuville now. And now here's Ottonic. Evans is not showing up. Maybe this could motivate Evans, and watch, he's going to prove me wrong, and he's going to go out there, win, and we'll see what happens. But one of the big things is I feel very good that Tonic can make this a championship battle with his teammate Thierry Neuville. They got the same equipment. This could be a pretty fun second half of World Rally Championship.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll have to see if the full-timers can finally make some noise, because it seems like, the part-timers, Rovanpera and Ogier, especially Ogier, are the ones, still in their thunder. And we'll see how this championship is going to go moving forward. And now I believe it's time to bring Jackson back on for our Grid One Shining Moment.
Yes, it is time for our one shining moment, our standout moment from this weekend. And of course, everybody in the comments is free to join along. But we're going to start with Kobe. What stands out for you?
I'm going to give my Grid One Shining Moment to Austin Cindric. Since he ended up winning the Daytona 500 as a rookie, it's been a very, very difficult journey for him in the Cup Series so far. He's been through a lot of ups and downs, mostly a lot of downs. And for him to come out there, run well all weekend at Gateway and to get that win today, a surprise victory to many. because a lot of people didn't really expect to see him up there battling for the win. Team Penske brought three fast Ford Mustangs to the track with him, Ryan Blaney, and Joe Logano. Unfortunate situation with Blaney there, run out of field, coming to the white flag. But Cindric, if he had a few more laps and Blaney's field held up, I really believe Cindric could have passed him down on pace, because Cindric was really coming in a hurry. And when you're struggling the way Cindric was, especially when you're replacing someone like Brad Keselowski in a Team Penske car, people are going to talk and all of that. But I think he silenced any doubters today about him being in that number 2 car.
No, 100%, and such a breath of fresh air for Team Penske, who's been struggling, has had a tough career this season where they're kind of looking for more, and such a great moment for Austin to finally get another win outside of Daytona. Adam Lemmerise in the comment section, SVG winning at Portland. Joe, I got this feeling it might be something close to this for your shining moment.
Well, I'm going to save that actually for a Grid Encore tomorrow, where I know Ben and all of them are going to go more into detail of the Portland weekend. My shining moment, though, I would say also comes from the Cup Series race today. Carson Hocevar, that's 77 Spire Motorsports. This kid, I know at the end of last year, it was one of those deals where people were talking about what he did at Phoenix, critical of him. Does he really have this opportunity? I think he's showing he has matured to the point where he's going out there. He's running his other rookie teammate, Zane Smith. He is doing great overall. Still a work in progress, of course. Anytime you're a rookie in the Cup Series, it's not going to be easy. And we've had some rookies in the past go out there, get wins. I don't anticipate that from this rookie class, but just to go out there, have a solid day at Gateway. Great job by that team. And Spire Motorsport, I think they're looking up and up right now.
No, 100%. And so awesome to see his maturing in such this short amount of time, right? So I do want to do IndyCar for my shining moment, but I'm not going to give it to Scott Dixon as much as I want to. We've been talking a lot about Tristan Vaudier and how it's been forever since we've last seen him in an IndyCar 2017, right? Guys, that was his first IndyCar road start since 2015. That was almost 10 years ago. And for him to even be remotely competitive, right? Absolutely got eaten up on the restarts. But for him to keep the car clean, to stay out of trouble, and to keep the wings on it, I think, especially avoiding Colton Herta's lunge on the brakes there and causing that yellow, he could have been punted to Kingdom Come, and for him to avoid that and be alert all day today, I mean, proves that he kind of deserves, at the bare minimum, a part-time or an Indy 500 seat. That's all I'm going to say. Super happy for him.
Yeah.
That is it, though, for us today, as we have Road America, our headline for next week, as well as tons of other things going on this week, Joe.
Yeah, a lot going on this week. Grid Encore will be tomorrow. Ben will be on the air. He's doing his double right now on the way to our Sonoma. Then Women in Motorsport. And we'll do this all over again with Grid Live pre-race. Be sure to subscribe to us. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our programs. One of the big thank yous, of course, to our Patreon investors, Colin Shell, Mark, Robin, David, Matthew, for investing in the Grid Network each and every month. They've been investing in us. They got some stickers. You'll get stickers too. You invest in us. And of course, you could do a one-time investment through Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, YouTube Super Chats. You got a lot of options to invest in us. Help us get to the track more frequently. Get our team to the track more frequently. We got a great team that love motorsports, and they want to be at the track interviewing drivers and bring you more excellent coverage. With that said, for Jackson and Kobe, I'm Joe. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.